Are you afraid of the dark, or creatures that lurk in the night? What about evil spirits that scream beyond the grave? What are your nightmares? What keeps you up at night? Perhaps it's something more practical, worldly even. A weapon formed by others' selfishness and used on innocent people. A creature that's only inclination is to hunt, devour, and grow. Human hubris under the banner of human development. What happens when the monster is us? The system meant to protect its people, but used against them. Today, we discuss how humanity can melt away if courageous people don't take a stand. In today's episode of 1988, The Blob.
Welcome to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, where we analyze stories and films that help us make sense of life. We are four friends with backgrounds in storytelling, filmmaking, teaching, and narrative therapy. Join us on our quest towards telling and living our stories more meaningfully. I'm Derek Hatch.
My name is Nick Natal.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph Wilson.
I'm Jason Lynn.
Hi, everybody. This is episode
33.
33.
Wow. I didn't think of the number until right now.
Right, we got to think about
Why
it.
are you
That's
guys
third film of the
33rd.
podcast.
Yeah.
Since we
counting.
relaunched this year, that means we have talked
that's
about
wild.
just from January to now. This
Yeah.
is the 33rd. That's wild.
Look
Yeah,
at
I
us.
feel the exhaustion of that.
Yeah, that part. But our 33rd episode in this season of Heart of Darkness. That's still a dope name, right? That's what it is?
Hearts of Darkness,
Hearts
yeah.
of Darkness, yeah, that's a dope name. And this villain of the week is the Blob.
Done.
So I kind of want to get your guys' first reactions and
Yeah.
your first thoughts, but I want to tell you why I picked this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't already known about this podcast, if you've heard me talk about it, getting eaten alive is the worst way I could ever imagine going on. I'm watching Attack on Titan for those who are into anime, and all it is about eating people, and it just makes me so sad.
Oh,
Like, this
people
is-
getting eaten by like
giant,
horribly
huge-
gross, disfigured
Yes,
giants.
so imagine like a two-story building person
a
running towards
naked
you.
baby
Yeah,
that's
like,
2 stories tall.
like running at like full speed, like outrunning horses. That's terrifying. And then they eat you, and they don't need to eat you. That's the worst thing ever.
Well-
No, they don't need to eat you because they don't digest you. They just throw you up.
There
because
is a
they're slipping
purpose,
something.
but
we're not
I'd
gonna,
spoil it for you.
We're not going to get into Attack on Titan. We're talking about the Blob, and the Blob specifically is just like because you disintegrate so slowly too. Like that guy. I spoilers. I guess I'll spoil it.
Yeah.
People die in
what's
the
his
movie.
name?
Spoilers.
A lot of people die in this movie. Phone book. Do you
People
remember
you don't
his name?
expect.
Yeah.
I didn't. It's
I don't
Billy or
remember
something.
anybody's
I don't remember any
I
name.
think okay.
I just know
So
the Blob.
The
Yeah.
phone book will look it up. We'll look it up in the phone
thank
book.
you. But the main person we would think is like going to be the main character, the one that's going out, the cheerleader. He gets eaten, and you could just see how slowly it takes for him to get eaten,
Yeah.
even with the other deaths in the future,
Right.
In the later on in the film,
Mhm.
it's horrible. But also,
Mm-hmm.
this is something that was created by something that should be protecting,
Yeah.
which is even scarier because that is the real side of things.
The system.
It is the system.
The system has created your
Yeah.
worst fear
And
and
it's-
brought it to
Oh
life.
my god! This is perfect.
Yes, it is perfect. Yes, it's exactly
That's
what
the
it is.
ultimate
It's
villain
the
for
system
Joe.
creating something that can eat me. That's horrible. Oh my gosh.
It's. I think it's
that
Paul.
brings a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your guys'
Wow,
thoughts?
that's crazy how it ties the two together. And Paul is the guy who dies.
Okay.
Well,
Paul.
that's probably what separates this from something like The Thing.
Yeah.
Or a lot of other choices.
Because those
or
are like
Jeepers
actual, like,
Creepers.
aliens and stuff like that. Those are things that are like actually otherworldly. This
Yeah.
was created by like our government, or
Yeah.
not our government, but this was created by the government and then tested on this town
Yeah.
that like, no one's not even going to know anyways. We care
Mhm.
about what the progress is. We care about this bioweapon.
Right.
They don't care about the people. They care about what is going to benefit them.
Mhm.
That's my definition of the system. Whenever I talk about the
Mhm.
system, that's my definition of
Yeah.
something in power that is meant to protect the people completely turns away from people and uses the people. That's the system to me.
The justification is we're sacrificing the few for the many.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's the justification that is.
We'll eventually get to
Twisted.
Transformers 3 too, because that talks about the
Of
system.
course
We'll
it
eventually
does.
get to be able to bring that in.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
But yeah, no, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually
you
watched
think?
this all together,
did.
which was a lot of fun.
Oh my.
Mhm.
This brought me back. I was, I think probably like 4th, 5th grade. So this was when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
Horror movies, that genre took over my life for about 2.5-ish years. That was all I wanted to watch. That was all I cared about. This reminds me of a lot of the movies I used to watch, like with my dad. For some reason, we never got to this one, but this is easily the kind of movie that I would have watched at like 10, 11 years old. And it kind of brought me, it's so weird to say that The Blob brings me back to childhood,
That's
but
awesome.
it kind of did.
Well, The Blob is not exactly my child. Mine was more, it was darker. It was like Michael Myers. and
Yeah,
Jason
slashers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I put that in that. I put
Yeah,
that all
well,
in this
horror in
category.
general.
Yeah.
That's funny because that's not my like history.
Because this is like Evil Dead-ish.
Yeah.
See, I still haven't even seen Evil Dead. Like, so my mom didn't let me watch like scary movies.
Yeah.
She let me watch whatever else, like Watership Down and stuff like that. So I never understood the disconnect that she didn't make with that, but I guess.
It's animated.
Yeah, it's just different types of gore.
cartoon
It's just
buddies.
cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched The Blob probably like around like 22 or something like that.
Okay.
So it was a recent watch for me. And then it stuck with me because again, it's getting eaten by something. So
Yeah.
it's just
Special effects were cool. I didn't think it was going to be as graphic.
Yes, great
that-
When
special
the first
effects.
kill happened, I was like, I'm in all the way.
yeah, that too, because you guys know I love practical effects.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very
so
cool.
that's
Very inventive. A lot of the deaths were very inventive.
The dude being pulled through that little slot
Yep.
and like broken in half.
Like little the kid that gets disintegrated into the sewer. They kill a kid in this
yeah.
movie. Like
That did catch me off guard. I
Yeah.
did not think they had the balls to do that.
They're like, oh, we can only get one though, so we'll just get this one. We'll just get
But
the
that
one
makes
that
it
goes-
worse,
It
though.
works though.
That's
Because
worse.
Disease doesn't choose who to kill or not.
indiscriminate.
Exactly.
Yep.
And now the other kid has to live with that.
Yeah.
That was his homeboy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man. I always tend to watch movies in a way where these characters are real to me. Like these are my like. Oh man, I hope Paul like does well in his life. Like I hope Brian really turns it around. Like these are my homeboys. Not really, but like I act as if these are real people.
Yeah.
And they're just getting taken out
Yeah.
gruesomely in front of me. And I'm like, no! Way more people are dying than I want. And it's like, it becomes so personal. And then I'm upset with the movie because everyone's dying and I'm just caring about these people I've never met.
Yeah.
But man, that makes it so real because that's the reality is we had these hopes and these, like, man, like we really hope the best in these people. And they're just, nope, horrible death.
Yeah.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
And it was the system.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do. You can only run.
Yeah.
And you can only do your best. And you can tell as many people as you can, but there's nothing you can do. And there's a hopelessness. And the movie being really personal for me because of how I was seeing the characters, I'm not really realizing it now until now when we talk about it. So I think that was really cool.
We can get to the letter box.
I almost reached for that axe I still got.
Scream now while there's no room to breathe. In Aberville, California, 3 high school students try to protect their hometown from a gelatinous alien life form that engulfs everything it touches. The first to discover the substance and live to tell about it, the trio witnessed the blob destroying an elderly man, then it growing to a terrifying size. But no one else has seen the goo, and the police refuse to believe the kids without proof. That's the letterbox.
I just realized this takes place in California.
Yeah, right.
Add that to the layer.
Wow.
That and connected to it too.
That's
yeah.
pretty-
Oh man, it could have been me.
This could have.
There's still time.
Standout characters.
The Blob.
Yeah,
It's
the
the only
Blob.
it's the only one I remember.
Okay, there was the.
I had to look up the names.
There
And
was
the evil government official that's like super kind at first. And
Yeah. I forget her name, but the chick, the cheerleader.
Yep.
Yeah, she was because she went off. At first, she was just kind of like, "Oh, like I'm just so timid. Like I just want to be live this normal life, and I just want to go on dates." And then she's shooting like a machine gun at the blob at the end. Like, actually, like
Save the
taking
cheerleader.
action.
Save the cheerleader.
save the world. Save the
It
cheerleader,
works for
save the
this
world.
movie.
Where is that from?
Heroes.
From Heroes. It works for this movie, though.
That's kind of funny.
Her name is Meg Penny, I believe.
Thank you, phone book. Meg Penny. So I like Meg Penny. What about you, Derek?
When I first watched the movie, the priest was really fascinating
Oh, yeah.
to watch. Like I think I had a fun time. I had the ending. The ending
Yeah.
with him, I had no idea that
You'll
was
tell me
coming.
soon.
Yeah.
Yes, I did think that was interesting. Is it Paul or Brian? Who's the troubled kid?
Brian.
Brian. Okay,
Brian Flagg.
Brian Flagg. Thank you.
Red flag.
That's a good nickname.
Yeah.
So I mean, Brian falls under that
I'd love to
kind
be
of
called
like
Red Flag.
classic '80s
Nope.
trope of the kind of rebellious, misunderstood, kind of like Bender and Breakfast Club, like
he's
that
the
kind of
archetype
archetype.
like the rebel and the everyman. Like,
I'm a
he's
bad
the
Yeah,
boy.
boy
yes,
that
yeah.
is-
I w-
That's what you thought he was?
Like archetype?
Yeah, the revolutionary,
No, I think he's more of the
Outlaw.
rebel,
We
like
know that it
the
is.
outlaw rebel. Yeah,
which is revolutionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, they are the same, aren't they?
but usually the rebel outlaw archetype, part of their journey is coming to use the like to bring about the revolutionary aspect in some way, but that doesn't always happen necessarily.
usually
but
just-
I
it
but
can be
I
outright
do
rebellion.
but I do think he does fit into this with the revolutionary, because the revolution here is that the blob exists.
Mhm.
Like that's the quote unquote revolution he's
Yeah.
trying to bring, is to try to prove that this thing exists. And then of course his character arc is he wants to run away, he wants to get away. That's classic revolutionary, right? Is like this fight's not worth it.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and
Against the system,
Against
my
the
brother.
comes back against the
Against the
yes,
system, my
yes,
brothers.
that's right.
Uh-huh.
It is him going up against the system. And it's actually funny. It's actually funny because he runs away, but then when he spies, right, and he sees that, oh, this guy,
He's actually-
can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Then the revolutionary in him ignites, and he's like, all right, we got to blow this blob. We got to take this
Yeah, we
down.
gotta take a stand. We have to go ahead and take control.
That's actually
yeah.
what ignites him.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
before that, it's just causeless rebellion.
Yes,
Yeah.
but now he's got something to channel
actually,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Plus, it's that, and it's Penny, right? That's her name.
Yeah.
And Penny, because she's also like, well, I'm going to do something about this too. Like, she's also like has an active role
Yeah.
in it, in challenging him to stand up.
Yeah.
As well.
Yes. So that character arc was probably for me, I mean, that's cliche because that probably is the main character arc of the movie.
Yeah.
But still, I enjoyed watching that and trying to think about it through that archetypal like perspective.
Yeah. Jason.
It was the blob. Like I wasn't thinking, well, no,
You can't have Nick's
no.
answer.
I can. It's just
No,
really
one
spoke
person. You got to have your own answer.
The guy that was ahead of the whole operation that was making sure they all stayed. I liked him. He was my favorite.
Okay.
The oppressor.
The oppressor.
No.
The one now, the government
scientist.
official?
Yeah.
That was also Nick's. You can't.
Moss. Dang. Nick picked
Nick
two.
got
That's
two,
not
yeah.
You
fair.
got to. He went first, so
It's
you got
not,
to.
it's not fair.
Yeah.
Well, I liked Paul and he died, so that was like, what do you want from me? All right, these are all dead ends.
Paul's the first death.
Paul's who
Yeah.
we thought
Oh,
was the
the
main
girl's
character.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That gets like,
Which, by the way, hilarious in the pharmacy drugstore.
Oh,
And he's buying the protection,
dad
after
and then it goes to the house.
And it's the dad. And it's,
It's the
the
dad, yeah.
That's funny.
they all kind of stood out together. It wasn't just like, oh, I really like this or I really like that. It was more of like the town,
Yeah.
like everyone
the town's a
together.
character.
The town
and
is a character.
okay. So that's good. Now we're getting to it. Honestly, I think this movie is all about what a community of people can do if they're entrusting with each other.
Yeah.
They can defeat something that can consume them. That is meant to consume them.
Ooh,
Like
okay.
sin is meant to consume you. However, just like with Jason with American Psycho, tying it back to it, when there is a confession and you release that, but that you are in a community that you can actually confess that stuff to, that is when you are stopping that devouring. That's when you're putting the snow on the blob.
So this is the next step after American
yes,
Psycho.
this is the next step.
This
Getting a
is-
strong community that can actually build you up after you've had that confession. That's honestly, I've been noticing that all my movies have been that. Something about like some type of community going against unstoppable odds, like Age of Ultron, Fury, Watership Down, Infinity War is my favorite movie. Even though they lose, they still like tried in
They
their
lose
best.
together.
Yeah,
We'll
they
do that
lose-
together, yeah.
They lose together. So yeah, I guess that's just my thing, man. I love seeing. Yeah. Well, yeah, because Cap said it, but I just love seeing like people stand up against like injustice and things that are wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
And
how I tied it in.
I feel like with all of your guys' movies, I'm seeing you and more you and you. I'm seeing you more clear
Mhm.
every time you pick a movie.
Yeah.
And one thing I gotta say as well is like with your stop motion stuff, we have seen 3 movies this year where no one is safe. Any character can be ruthlessly killed on a whim, whether that be nature in Watership Down, whether that be other beings, so to speak, in Transformers, or the things we create like the Blob.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I watch your stop motions, I also think that too. No one is safe.
Yeah, because no one is safe.
I have a question I was thinking of with that. So, because it's almost like death is a character in these things you choose. And death will will pluck you away at any time. Like, is that something that you think about consciously, like with your life?
It's not death per se, but it is a sense of loss.
Okay.
I've had a lot of relationships with people throughout the years, but just randomly, suddenly, they're just gone. Whether it's just through disagreements, whether it's through life decisions, whether it's whatever the situation is, they're just gone. Relationships I thought would last, relationships I thought were going to be meaningful, end up not being, stuff like that. So it is kind of random. So I guess it's more of a deep down I can anticipate or would believe that someone may leave. However, the community that is around me shows me, no, we're not leaving. We're actually going to press into you, and we love you. We're not just going to disappear on you.
And it sounds like the Blob, the way that happens, if I understand what you're saying correctly, is that we have to have something that we contend against together. So we have to all get the snow. We have to blow it out, right?
Yeah.
All right? Like we have to do something to contend because the Blob, like as a villain to me, there is a community in the Blob. The Blob takes you into its being and it completely melts you, literally, right?
Yeah.
It melts you into its identity.
Yeah.
So when they see the faces of those who had died, right?
Turn into Joe. Dang.
When they see...
I got to edit that out every episode. Dang.
No, leave them in.
When they see the faces, though, of those that they had lost in that community, they're just these distorted, disfigured faces.
Yeah.
And they just become part of the Blob. So the Blob is also creating a community, but it's an anti-community.
That's like American Psycho, though. That's
That's what I'm telling you. It flows right out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that interpretation is what I'm saying? Does that kind of fit for you, like with how you see the movie? And
no, just that you brought it now, I'm like, dang, that's actually like really good. Like that's really deep. I would still connect it. I guess haunting things like regrets. I guess like regrets for people that I wanted relationships with, maybe that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what you said, that was good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to the conversation after this. But first, question for you. Which social media platform do you spend the most time on? For most of us, it's YouTube. YouTube is a treasure trove for film geeks like us who love listening to others' thoughts about our favorite stories. And we at All Things Narrative are on YouTube as well. Not only do we publish episodes of this podcast on YouTube at the same time as our other platforms such as Apple and Spotify, but also on YouTube, Nick creates these incredible promotional videos that not only showcase the film of the week, but actually use scenes from the film on top of our commentary and analysis here. So he does an amazing job. They're incredibly creative, and you can check those out and listen to us on YouTube at the link here in the show notes. Our YouTube channel is at All Things Narrative. We have the podcast there and these promo videos. And if you're on YouTube, we'd love to encourage you to subscribe. And not only are we on YouTube, but Mr. Joe Lee Stark 25, aka our own Joseph Wilson, also publishes his stop motion films on YouTube. They are like the Blob, so much fun just to sit back and enjoy. And so if you want to follow either of us on YouTube, check out the show notes below. All right.
How do we stop the Blob? If we've said that,
That's a good question.
If we've all figured out what kind of the Blob is to us, how do we stop the Blob?
I hear Ronald Reagan at the end of American Psycho talking about cooperation.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah, but yeah.
We must learn to cooperate with each other.
You could just
They say the same thing that gets them into trouble in American Psycho. Snow.
That's it. We're done.
No, we're done. Yeah. Close down. No. Cold, ice.
Okay. Cold and ice.
Oh, tell us.
So
Please tell us.
Well, okay. The blob, I said it melts into something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously snow is the opposite of that. Cold, freezing, right?
Yeah.
They try to destroy it. They try a lot of different ways to blow it up, right? I mean, right? They try to trap it.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. They try to shoot at it, which I don't know why movies people just try to shoot at things like this. It just doesn't work.
Maybe the one bullet.
We try that.
Yeah.
Real life.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. But I forget, Joe. How do they figure out that it's cold?
They go to the restaurant where the waitress is there.
Okay.
And before after the guy gets sucked into the sink,
Mm-hmm.
and they go into the freezer, and the blob is trying to get them in the
Oh,
freezer. But
yeah.
then it touches
And
the
it can't
cold,
get
And
in.
it's like, no, that's too cold. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So it sounds like you have to find the weakness then.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how you defeat the blob, that which is coming against you. You have to find where it's vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about the blob, if my connection to blob being sin, you have to find the root of it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to find the root of it and tell your community so the community can help you unhook that
Mm-hmm.
or find those roots so that they can be chopped down.
Before it spreads.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because it will spread and it will spread fast and it will consume you before you even know it.
Yeah.
Like the penguin.
Yeah.
Next
Because that's
time.
going to be
Let's
next.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other random thoughts? Because that's all I really have to talk about.
I think it's interesting watching this movie in 2024 because I think we're at a time where it wouldn't surprise us if we found out that the government was like behind something like COVID or something horrible that happened. I think we would be outraged, but I don't think we would,
Start a revolution.
well, maybe, but I don't think we would be as surprised. Like there is such a twist in this movie that nobody saw coming that the government actually created this thing. I think now, if this movie came out in 2024, we'd kind of be like,
oh yeah, that makes sense.
They're capable of that.
Like we expect it, but there's something that keeps us from going, hey, wait, no, hold on a minute. Like the issue isn't pressed because of division. Division between race, division between the sexes now. Like the gap is like widening back up.
Yeah.
And the political polarity, like there's no town forming against this because it's
we're
all
so divided. Yeah.
It's like we can't forgive Brian Flagg or like we don't want to listen. Like there's no town. The town is broken up, and the town that's broken up can't fight against dudes in white suits going around making sure this blob kills everybody.
Well, that's why the police officers had a hard time believing Brian because all they could see was that archetype. They couldn't see him as anything more. They couldn't see him as being capable of anything more. And when he tries to, and I think that's dangerous. That's extremely dangerous for a society is if we only see people as one thing and we don't see them as multi-storied. Sorry, I got distracted.
People aren't just the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Like if you get stuck on that, then you're done.
Yeah.
Society is done.
Yeah.
And people are resigned to that division.
Well, that
as
is
well.
That is one theme in the movie is that people are more than what they seem. The cheerleader's capable of more than what we thought. Brian is. Even the government official is more than what he seems.
Even the police officer at the end, he even helped out.
Yes.
He better bruise him in. But
people are more than what they seem.
The guy we think is going to be the main character is actually capable of just dying.
Yeah.
He's capable way more than what we thought.
Oh, man.
Nobody's safe.
Yeah.
No one's safe.
Yeah.
But I think
there's potential in everyone.
I think that speaks to that no one is safe, that it can happen to any one of us, and that we should form these connections with people because we don't know when or how long you're going to be with them. You would hope for the best. Like you would hope that we could be here together for like the rest of our lives, but circumstances, life happens, and it's like there has to be an understanding and cherishing what we had rather than what separates us.
I got one final question. I just popped into my head. If we are a community, like the four of us at this table in this podcast, what is our blob? What are we contending against?
Is it the same for everyone?
I don't know. That's what I'm just curious what that is for you.
I've wondered this. I don't know if this is officially my blob, but in different media consumption, just absorbing whatever a movie or media has without any actual introspection or thought into, okay, what am I seeing? What is good to know and what actually I should not absorb in, like just active awareness in consuming media and movies.
But I think that's what this group actively pushes against.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's our
exactly.
blob.
That's the blob we're contending against, he's saying.
Yeah. That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What about you guys?
I took it as what's my blob within this group.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if Joe's talking about
well, that too.
If we're called to go away or we feel like people leave us, to have this understanding that it could be bigger than us. And is there a blob within the group that is sucking us in? That's creating its own altered, like deformed community.
Yeah. That is attacking us. Yeah. Okay.
Even within the podcast.
Oh, that's, So what do you think that is, then?
I used to think it was The Last Jedi.
Hell no.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
That's funny.
But what I do think it is, at least in our relationship to our listeners. In other words, I'm going to answer more of how we are confronting a blob that our listeners might be. I think it's a lot of what Jason said there about, this is just entertainment. This is just mindless, not thinking much of it. Going even deeper than that is just the feeling that I don't know what this means. Could be the movies we watch, could be the lives that we live. But that question, that haunting existential dread of what's the meaning of all this? And that trap that we can fall into of, maybe it's just meaningless. Maybe it doesn't really matter. And I think you could fall into that trap with the stories that you read and watch and just think, it's just all this. But you can fall into that same trap with your own life as well. And if you can train yourself to look at stories with a sense of meaning, you bring that mindset, you bring that critical thinking, you bring that interaction into how you interact with your own story. How do you see your own life? And you start to realize that, oh my gosh, if I could see all this meaning in this, what meaning am I capable of crafting in my life by the way that I live? And I think that's the question we all have to answer is, how are we living a meaningful story? And I think that's with every movie we pick. I think that's what we're wrestling with. We're tackling a different piece of the puzzle with each month, with each theme, with all the different things we're talking about here, because it is such a complex question. And I think we can't answer it alone. We don't have to answer it alone. We can do it in community together.
That's good.
That's all I got.
I also think of vulnerability, because there is a sense of vulnerability we have to put into these movies and then to release them out to listeners and even to each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I learned about you guys through us talking about these movies. So I think that's also something that could consume us if we choose not to be as vulnerable.
Yeah.
So that's what I think could be our blob as well, if we fall into that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, for me, at least in my viewpoint, not necessarily a struggle, but something that I've been aware of. And I don't know if this affects you guys, so I don't know whether or not to say it. But one thing that I've considered a blob, or something that to be like aware of or to stop, is like when movies and media become truth for us instead of highlighting and helping us visualize life and navigating how the truth applies to that. And when like everything in the movie is like, I do this because of this movie. This, like, yes, the movies help, but they cannot be our idol and they cannot be our God. They help us navigate our life, and they are not our life. They show our life and stuff, but like the line can get blurred. I think that can happen with other people. Like, it does happen with other people.
Yeah, that's good.
I think for me, when it comes to community in general, I think I can get lost in it. And so all of the communities I look at in my life, even in the restaurant now, I see younger versions of myself really enmeshed in the restaurant, in the people in the restaurant. I've been enmeshed in other communities, and there's even a potential for that here, at least for me, to where there's a loss of myself, and kind of life kind of continues to go by, and there's I'm still helping out with something instead of becoming something. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
And so I'm stuck in the blob.
Yeah.
So it's like the shadow side of the community that Joe was talking about.
It's like if this podcast were to end, would our friendships end? Because that means we're just friends out of like just
necessity in a sense.
What's the word for it? Like we're just friends by association.
Well, this is a glue.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
It is. But if this becomes this podcast is our friendship and not like an outlet for it and just a beautiful like celebration of what we're learning together. If the podcast ends or like one of us leaves a podcast and we're not in touch, I feel like that's a manifestation of what you're talking about. I don't know if I'm hidden, but
I think that's again that ties to back. That's just that death in a sense. That immediate just gone. That yeah.
But we all have such a good foundation because we've known each other a long time before we started this. So I think that's key too.
Yeah.
Do you get into an arrangement in that kind of contractual reciprocating way? Or do you, what I think we've done is we've built the podcast out of something that's already existed. That's very different. Joe, thank you for leading us in this discussion.
Of course. I have a little
Thank you for bringing the blob. Yep. Go ahead. Round
this is way more than I thought I'd get out of this movie.
All the way around though. American Psycho, the blob. I know y'all. Everyone was hating on Batman Returns.
I'm not gonna say Penguin's about to be lit, bro.
Yeah.
Oh,
next week.
Who was hating on Batman Returns?
Derek.
Call me out.
Let's put the
We're gonna
light
press into
on
that
the
next
subject.
Derek.
It's really because it's one person.
It's always Derek. The last
Everyone.
Tenet. Batman Returns.
That's so
always
funny.
comes back to
We
me.
need to watch Tenet, guys.
Yeah.
No, I don't need to. Tenet.
Right.
No.
Anyways,
At least up until the final act.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Joe, we're gonna watch Tenet. But anyway,
Yeah, because I've still never seen it. All right, so just like God tells us, we can't do this fight alone. And trusting in outside sources like a job, a relationship, the government, or even yourself may feel safe. But in the end, it will eat you alive until your body and your soul are trapped by a hellish prison. And that's all I got to say about the blob. Don't trust the system, bruh.
Nice. Well, join us next time where Nick is going to roast me for an hour talking about Batman Returns, our final installment in our Hearts of Darkness series. And until then,
let's make some fucking snow.
Yeah.
thank you for listening to the Live a Meaningful Story podcast, produced by All Things Narrative. If you'd like to learn more about our coaching, workshops, events, please check out allthingsnarrative.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at All Things Narrative. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and tune in next time as we continue exploring the stories we love and the stories we live. Take care.